Have you ever felt like you're always rushing, always running, yet somehow never arriving where you really want to be? That constant pressure, the feeling that you're late for something important, even if you can't quite name what it is. That, my friends, is exactly what Alice saw when she followed the White Rabbit. When Lewis Carroll introduced this character, he wasn't just describing a nervous little animal with a pocket watch. He was holding up a mirror to something deeply human, our restless relationship with time. The White Rabbit, always checking his watch, always muttering, I'm late, is a symbol of our modern anxiety, long before the word anxiety became popular. Think about it. How many times in your life have you rushed from one task to another, glancing at your phone as if it were your own pocket watch, only to realize you weren't even enjoying the journey? We are all chasing something, deadlines, appointments, success, approval, and often we forget why we started running in the first place. For Alice, the chase after the White Rabbit was a doorway to another world. For us, the chase often feels like a doorway to exhaustion. We run and run. But do we ever stop to ask, what am I really running toward? Psychologically, the White Rabbit represents that inner voice of urgency, the part of us that says, hurry up, you're falling behind. You don't have enough time. It's the voice that makes us compare ourselves to others, that whispers that we should be further ahead in life, more successful, more accomplished, younger, stronger. It's the ticking clock inside our own heads. But here's the question. What happens if we keep listening to that voice without pause? We lose presence. We lose joy. We forget to live the only moment we ever truly have, the now. I remember realizing this in my own life. There were days when I felt like the White Rabbit himself, rushing from meeting to meeting, checking the time constantly, worried about everything I had to do. And then at the end of the day, I would lie in bed and ask myself, what did I actually experience today? Did I really live it, or did I just run through it? That's the trap of the White Rabbit. He promises urgency, but what he delivers is emptiness. And yet, Carroll also gives us a gift through this character, because the White Rabbit, as frantic as he is, leads Alice to a deeper truth. Following him is what forces her to question reality, to explore, and ultimately to awaken. In the same way, our own anxiety about time can wake us up. If we pay attention, it can push us to reflect. Am I running because I truly want what's ahead? Or am I just running because everyone else is? Here's something powerful. Slowing down is not laziness. It's wisdom. When we pause, when we step outside the endless rush, we can ask ourselves, what is truly urgent in my life? What matters more, the clock or the quality of my days? If I keep chasing time, will I ever feel satisfied? The White Rabbit shows us that time, if we let it, can enslave us. But Alice reminds us that we always have a choice. We can follow blindly, or we can stop, breathe, and decide for ourselves what path we want to take. So the next time you catch yourself hurrying, worrying, or racing against the clock, remember the White Rabbit. Ask yourself, am I living my life, or am I just running late for it? Because in the end, the true madness is not in Wonderland. The true madness is living your whole life in a rush and never realizing that the only moment you had to live was this one. Have you ever noticed how much of your life is ruled by the clock? Wake up at this hour. Be at work by that hour. Answer emails before the deadline. Fit your workout in between meetings. Even our moments of rest are scheduled. I only have 30 minutes to relax before the next task. We live in a world where time doesn't just measure our days, it controls them. And in that sense, we are not so different from the White Rabbit, nervously checking his pocket watch, repeating, I'm late. But here's the truth. Time itself isn't the problem. The problem is how we relate to it. Psychologists call it time anxiety, the constant feeling that there is never enough of it, that we're always behind, that no matter what we do, the clock is slipping through our fingers. Some people feel it as stress, others as guilt, and many as a restless kind of emptiness. I should be doing more. Think about how often we check our phones. Every buzz, every notification is like a miniature pocket watch, reminding us of urgency. We've traded Carol's pocket watch for digital screens, but the result is the same, a life chained to the tick of the clock. And it goes deeper. Time anxiety isn't just about being late for a meeting. It's also about the fear of aging, of wasting life, of running out of chances. When the white rabbit shouts, "No time to say hello, goodbye," it echoes something we all feel, the rush to move forward, even at the cost of human connection. How many times have you cut a conversation short because you were too busy? How many memories never happened because you had to hurry somewhere else? The clock becomes a cage. It locks us into a race where the finish line keeps moving. We tell ourselves, once I get there, once I finish this, once I achieve that, then I'll finally relax. But the moment never comes, because after one finish line, another appears. The white rabbit isn't just late for a tea party. He's late for life itself. And here's where the story becomes more than fantasy. Carol shows us, through Alice, what happens when we blindly follow the clock. She tumbles into chaos, confusion, a world where nothing seems stable. Isn't that what happens to us too? We live in constant motion, yet feel lost in the very life we're racing through. But maybe the lesson isn't just a warning. Maybe the white rabbit can also wake us up. Time will always move forward. We can't change that. But we can change whether the clock is a guide or a prison. What if we stopped seeing time as an enemy and instead treated it as a canvas? What if, instead of asking, how much time do I have left, we asked, what can I create with the time I have now? Because at the end of the day, no one escapes the clock, but we can escape the cage. And that begins by realizing you don't have to run every time a watch ticks. You don't have to chase every deadline, every demand, every expectation. Sometimes, the wisest thing you can do is pause, breathe, and step outside the race. The white rabbit may keep running, but you don't have to follow. Have you ever noticed how rushing through life makes you blind to what's right in front of you? One of the strangest things about chasing time is that the faster we move, the less we actually experience. Alice's journey through Wonderland shows us this in subtle ways. By following the white rabbit, she enters a world full of wonders. Talking animals, magical gardens, impossible tea parties. Yet she spends much of her time disoriented, anxious, and distracted. She is so focused on catching up with the rabbit that she misses the beauty of where she is. Doesn't that sound familiar? Think about your own days. How often do you rush through breakfast without tasting it? Scroll through messages without really reading them, or nod through conversations without truly listening? We live in an age of constant motion, but what we gain in speed, we often lose in depth. This is a paradox of our times. We have more tools than ever to save time, but we feel more rushed than ever before. And in that rush, we forget the present moment, the only moment that truly exists. Psychologically, this ties into what's called present moment awareness or mindfulness. When we live in constant pursuit of what's next, we disconnect from what is now. The white rabbit symbolizes that relentless forward pull. Hurry, hurry. The next thing is more important than this one. But here's the secret. The next thing never really arrives. When it does, it's instantly replaced by another. I once heard someone say, if you're always preparing to live, you'll never actually live. And that's exactly what happens when we let the rabbit guide us. Life becomes a series of preparations, deadlines, and future goals, but never the fullness of being alive in this very second. Alice shrinking and growing, constantly shifting in size, is a metaphor for this too. When we lose presence, our self-image distorts. We feel too small, not enough, or too big, overwhelmed by demands. But in both cases, we're not grounded. We're not centered in the present. What would it mean to slow down, even just for a moment, to taste your food, to actually hear the tone in a friend's voice, to look at the sky without thinking of your to-do list? These small acts of presence might seem insignificant, but they are the essence of life itself. Because here's the truth, rushing steals more than time. It steals meaning. You could live 80 years running and still miss the miracle of simply being alive. Alice eventually realizes that Wonderland isn't about catching the rabbit. It's about awakening to herself. And maybe that's our invitation too. So next time you catch yourself rushing, ask, what am I racing toward? And what am I losing in the process? Sometimes, the most radical act in a rush world is simply to stop, to be here, to breathe, to remember that the present isn't a stepping stone to the future. it is a destination. Because if you don't live now, when will you? There comes a moment when you realize the race you're running isn't one you ever chose. Deadlines, alarms, notifications, obligations. They keep you moving, but if you pause and look closer, you might ask, who decided this pace for me? That's the heart of the white rabbit's lesson. He's trapped in his own urgency, but we don't have to be. Unlike Alice, we don't need to follow him forever. We can choose to break the cycle. Breaking free doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It doesn't mean ignoring the reality of time. It means refusing to let the clock dictate your entire life. It means living with time instead of constantly running against it. Psychologists call this intentional living. It's the art of deciding what truly matters and letting go of the rest. When you're intentional, you no longer measure success by how much you accomplish in a day. You measure it by whether what you did aligns with who you are. Think about the endless to-do lists we all carry. Many items are urgent but not important. They drain us, while the things that feed our souls, connection, creativity, rest, get pushed aside. The white rabbit is the embodiment of those endless urgencies. Always busy, but never fulfilled. So, how do we step out of that race? First, by slowing down enough to notice. Ask yourself, why am I rushing right now? Sometimes the answer will surprise you. You're not late for anything real. You're just following an inner habit of urgency. Awareness is the first step. Second, by setting boundaries. Just as Alice eventually stands up to Queen of Hearts, we too must learn to say no. No to schedules that crush us. No to expectations that aren't ours. No to the belief that busyness equals worth. Each no creates space for a deeper yes. Yes to rest, to meaning, to presence. Third, by redefining success. What if success wasn't speed, but depth? What if a day well lived was measured not in tasks completed, but in moments truly experienced? This shift changes everything. Suddenly, a walk in the park, a real conversation, or 10 minutes of silence becomes as valuable, maybe more valuable, than finishing another urgent email. And finally, by embracing imperfection. The rabbit is terrified of being late because he fears punishment, judgment, rejection. How much of our own rushing comes from the same fear? We run because we don't want to disappoint. But life isn't meant to be lived under constant judgment. Freedom begins when we accept that we'll never be perfectly on time, perfectly productive, perfectly enough. And that's okay. Stepping out of the race is radical in a world that glorifies busyness. People may not understand at first. They may even criticize. But here's the quiet truth. The people who truly matter don't need you to run faster. They need you to be present. So pause. Look around. Ask yourself, am I running toward my life or away from it? The white rabbit will keep sprinting, lost in his panic. But you have a choice. You can stop, breathe, and create a rhythm that belongs to you. Because life isn't a race to the finish line. It's an invitation to live fully in each step along the way. Every story has a turning point. In Alice in Wonderland, the white rabbit is more than just a quirky character. He's a spark that pushes Alice into questioning reality itself. And if we look closely, he can push us to question our own lives too. The white rabbit represents urgency, anxiety, and endless motion. But his deeper lesson isn't simply about stress or rushing. His lesson is about meaning. Because when we spend our lives chasing time, the real question we're avoiding is, what actually matters to me? Let's be honest. It's easy to fill our days with motion. Work deadlines, social media updates, errands, endless notifications. They give us the illusion of progress. But at the end of the day, how much of it leaves us fulfilled? How much of it really touches the heart? The white rabbit teaches us by contrast. He's always busy but never satisfied. Always late but never arriving. He reminds us of what happens when urgency replaces purpose. Life becomes shallow, mechanical, and exhausting. So how do we take the rabbit's lesson and apply it? First, by asking a deceptively simple question. If today were my last day, what would I want to give my time to? This isn't about being dramatic. It's about clarity. Because when we imagine time running out, priorities fall into place. Suddenly, the small stuff fades and the essentials stand out: love, connection, meaning, growth. Second, by remembering that presence is more valuable than speed. Alice learns this slowly. At first, she chases a rabbit. But as the story unfolds, she begins to notice Wonderland itself, to question the strange characters she meets, to reflect on her own identity. She moves from chasing to awakening. That's her transformation, and it can be ours too. Third, by practicing what I call sacred pauses. These are intentional breaks where you stop the race, even briefly, and reconnect with yourself. A deep breath before answering a message. A moment of silence before starting the car. Choosing to walk instead of rush. These pauses may feel small, but they remind us life is not about how fast we move, but how deeply we experience. The white rabbit may keep running, but you don't have to. You can choose presence. You can choose meaning. You can choose to live, not just a race,